every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi, beautiful people. So if you are watching me on the replay currently, thank you so much for watching me on the replay. I appreciate you. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston, and I come on to talk to people that are doing things to empower the lives of others. And I do that because I feel like when we realize like somebody else has our story, there's some like power in that, there's community in that. And we start to realize that we can work on our healing process. So that's why I decided to do that. I've actually been podcasting since 2018, and it's been going really well. But since COVID started and we were in quarantine, I decided to bring my podcast to a video format, which is why Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch this podcast streaming live on video. And if you ever want to watch or listen to past podcasts, you can find me streaming on all podcasting platforms. And before we get started with our special guest, I wanted to put up this crisis text line. So this is a crisis text line. And if you dial 741-741 on your phone, your text message, you can text in. You can be connected directly to a crisis counselor. I really believe that when we're struggling, we shouldn't struggle alone. And sometimes we end up not realizing like what we can do. So this is just one way. Also, your local government's website. I've noticed a lot of websites are putting, a lot of government agency websites are putting up resources for people. So definitely look into the resources that are available in your local town so that you can get the support that you need right now, because it's a really challenging time. So I'm going to bring on our special guest. She is someone who is incredible and has, or who is doing amazing work out of the things that she has gone through. So I can't wait for you guys to hear her story. I'm going to invite her to the stream. Nieisha, how are you? Can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Hi, thank you so much, Celeste. And good evening to everyone out there, all your followers. Like Celeste mentioned, my name is Nieisha Deed. I am a speaker, and I'm also the founder of an organization called PureSpark that advocates the importance of prioritizing your mental health.
And you know how much I love that. And it has to do with breaking down the stigma. It's something that is so powerful, I think, and important. And so anytime I hear about people doing this stuff, I get really excited. I'm curious, like, why did you start PureSpark? Like, what made you decide to do this work?
So I guess I'll try to make the story short. But when I was a child, I lost my first family member to an overdose. And when I was young, I didn't really understand what that was. I didn't understand what that meant. I just thought, oh, it's the crazy uncle, right? The uncle that was unwell. This was like around 10 years old.
Nieisha, speak about that really quick, the uncle that is unwell, because I feel like we all have one of those people.
Yes.
I think the way that, the language right there at 10 years old, that we speak to our children, the people are kind of pushed to the side, or they're the ones in the back room that people know like something's wrong, but we don't talk about it, especially in our community. Speak about like what that was like for you.
We did talk about it a bit in my family. He was schizophrenic, but we talked about it from a way of like he had such a beautiful mind. He was an engineer, I want to say, and just like extremely brilliant. But something happened along his life where he just kind of got sick, and he was unable to work. So any time that I would go see him, he was kind of quiet, and no one ever said like, "Oh, that's your crazy uncle." It was with respect. But later, he passed away, and I found out the way that he passed away was because of an overdose. And so that was like my first kind of introduction to like mental illness. I thought of it as a very remote kind of situation. Very visible. Like if someone's sick, you can see that they're sick. Yes, I can tell that he was totally different than my other family members because he was quiet. He was himself a lot. Whereas most of my other family members weren't categorically that way.
And I think I like the way you described the visible mental health, because when I was younger, I associated mental health with a white straight jacket. I didn't think about it as your everyday issues that you go through that just pile up and pile up and pile up. Exactly. That's actually so true. That's exactly the way I pictured it growing up.
Exactly. So, that was the first instance. And then more recently, I had lost a cousin to overdose. Again, similar situations. And at that point, I was in the middle of my healing, and I was like, I have to do something. This is now the fourth family member that's passed away due to suicide. Trigger warning. I'm sorry for anybody who, might feel uncomfortable with this, but, between my uncle and my cousin, I had lost two other people. And, I had just reached my breaking point. I was like, you know what? I'm going to out myself. I'm going to talk about what happened to me. McLean Hospital, you're probably familiar with McLean Hospital.
If people that are listening to this now, and I know everybody's from different places, McLean is a psychiatric hospital in Massachusetts. It's actually one of the better hospitals that, people talk about with a lot of different resources. But go ahead.
Yeah, so they were doing a campaign on mental illness, and my mom had sent it to me, and she was like, I think you should look into this and be a part of this campaign. And I read it, and I knew that once I went live with my story, there was no taking it back, right? I was going to be in the public, and this was a campaign. I always get his name wrong. DMC was a part of it. This was a campaign. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is a campaign that was if you go to Terminal C at the Boston airport, you'll see that there's basically the wall of Terminal C as you're walking has pictures and stories of people. So it's something that gets publicized. So if you're somebody that don't want to share your story, you shouldn't do it with them, right? So I had to sit with it and think oh my God, once I do this, there's no turning back. So I said, what the hell? You know what? I'm going to go live with my story. I'm going to tell everybody about it because I want people to see that this affects people that look like me. Okay. And I want to share my story and tell them hey, look, I was on that path of making the six figures and gonna buy the home and all this stuff. And it happened to me because I was not prioritizing my mental health. So if my story can help somebody else, then so be it. I'm gonna put myself out there. And so I went live with my story. And as soon as I went live with my story, I said, there was a reason why I went through this and I came out on the other side. And it's to help people, right? So that's kind of what was the catalyst, was my own situation. What happened to my family more recently in last May was I gotta get people realizing this is important. If you don't prioritize your mental health, you can end up like me. And I don't want anybody to have to go through what I went through because it was horrible.
So now that you've brought that on here, everybody wants to know, like, what do you mean, my story? One of the things Nieisha wanted to make sure that I wrote was unafraid to speak authentically. And I thought that was interesting. I always ask my guests to, what do you want written under your picture? And she said, unafraid to speak authentically. So when you say your story, what is it? It sounds like you were on the American dream path.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
With
yes,
the six figures.
I was. Girl, it was all about that money. It was all about the Benjamins. Like,
I say American dream because they don't talk about mental health when they talk about doing to climbing the ladder. We don't talk about that at all.
This is all they talk about. This.
Everybody got money and not happy.
Hello. They're like, if you have this, you're gonna be happy, right? Like, as long as you have this, the world is your oyster and you're just going to always be happy. Nope, that's wrong. Because millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires also commit suicide. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, it's not about money.
It's not about money. So yeah, I think, so if I take it personal, make this story about me and speaking authentically about my personal struggle with mental illness, I think that, I'm able to reflect on what happened to me, and it's like 2020. It's clear as day. You know what I mean? My mom, such a hard worker, grew up on a farm in Alabama, and money was a scarcity, right? Like she had a huge family and things like that. They were hard workers, but they grew up in pretty much poverty, right? So being financially stable was very important to her. So that's something that was instilled in me at a very young age. I was, programmed, like, make sure that you get a good education, you go to college, you get a good job, and you're able to, take care of yourself, right? So that's all that I'm thinking about. I'm not worrying about my own emotions or anything like that. I'm like, okay, money, sustainability, like be financially free. Like that's it, right? I was just focused on that part of the wheel, that mental health, self-care wheel. You know what I'm talking about.
I know you're talking about the financial piece.
I was on the financial piece. That's it. Anything else, I was like,
I got this.
I was like, that don't matter, my emotions.
You didn't know about the rest of the wheel, though.
Girl,
you just knew about the financial.
I was like, there's more? Like, really? So yeah, I had, went to school and studied accounting, got a degree in accounting, because basically I knew that I would make good money, So I left and I started working for one of the best accounting firms, Deloitte & Touche. Shout out to Deloitte & Touche. And I stayed in the profession for 15 years, I climbed that ladder. I made that money. I made the bonuses and all that stuff. I was taking vacations and da-da-da-da-da. And then I was like, ooh, I'm not fulfilled though. Like, I don't really like going to work every day. And like, yeah, I got money in my account, but there's like a hole, like there's a hole. And I kept kind of pushing that away, but then I was like digging myself deeper into that depression, right? So far so that, I became suicidal. I had multiple suicide attempts. I was catatonic. So I don't know if you're familiar with that term or your viewers are, but basically I was walking around like so disconnected. And so ashamed, right? Like, oh my God, like, how did I get here? Like,
and how do you explain, and I know like how to explain it as a therapist, but I'm just thinking as somebody struggling with depression, how do you explain that when you have all this money in your account? So then you start to feel guilty for feeling bad because you're like, all my needs are being met. Why am I feeling this way, right? It's not adding up.
Well, for me, it was more or less like, I'm a person that always was with a class of folks. For example, you're in first grade, you're with a class of first graders, and in college, you're with a class of freshman, senior. And even when I got to the corporate world, you're with a class of like managers and da da da. So I'm looking at the people in my parameter, the people that are in my class and surrounding me, and I'm like, well, dang, they're able to do this without any problem, and I'm over here struggling. Something's really wrong with me. Like, so I'm gonna work harder. You know what I mean? Because obviously I'm not working hard enough, or something. You know. So I think for me it was a lot of confusion as to like, why is everybody else up here to be so happy and so content, but I'm over here like drowning? But perception's reality, right? Like,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know that then. And I think going into that depression helped me to put the blinders on and focus on me, not really focusing on what's going outside of me, but focusing on, well, Nieisha, let's figure out why you feel so empty, right?
What was that turning point for you, though, where you decided to focus on Nieisha? Like, how? Because I want somebody. I know there's somebody listening to this right now, and they are like probably in shock because you're speaking their language. So, what was that turning point to make you start focusing on you and trying to, like, even noticing that hole?
Well, I think, there were definitely signs. I always talk about the signs whenever I speak. I talk about the signs that I did not pay attention to.
Okay.
For example, for me, when I'm stressed out, I don't eat. So I'm losing weight, right? Or I don't sleep, right? Like I'm up in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, and I just have this uneasy feeling, right? And these are signs that my body was trying to tell me, yo, alert, hello, you're unbalanced, something's off here. And here I go pushing it to the side. I gotta go to work. I gotta make them papers. I don't care. Body, figure it out. Okay, you're not figuring it out fast enough. But as I'm shaming myself for the emotions that I'm feeling, I'm going deeper and deeper into that depression. And I think a lot of times people think like a depression, when you go into a depression, it's like one day you're happy and the next day you're depressed. No, it's like a sequence of events that keep compiling over each other. And then you're there and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what the hell just happened? It does seem like this, but it's been happening. It's a sequence of events that's been happening.
Yeah.
So anyway, living in DC, I would call my family, right? And they knew something was off when I was calling them, because I would talk to them about things that I was so worried about, the anxiety. I'm like, guys, da 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 da. So here I talked to one person. My family's kind of like the mafia. You talk to one person, everybody come in. Nieisha, so what's going on? You okay? I had my cousin calling me, like all these different people from, everywhere. I'm in the New England area. And so what saved me and what helped me was my support system. So backstory, I do have a couple of therapists in my family, in caretaker, like doctor, nurse and stuff. So they're very like compassionate. Thank God, because if it wasn't for my family, I wouldn't be here most likely. So they had the wherewithal to be like, something's not right with Nieisha. We're going to call and check on her every day to make sure she's okay. And there was one day that I didn't pick up the phone. So my cousin, who's a therapist, was like, nah, let's call and do a wellness check. So you know what a wellness check is. So they called the police, and they called my management company at the apartment complex that I was staying in Maryland. And they was like, hey, we haven't heard from Nieisha. Can you please go and check on her? And that was the day that I attempted. And so the management company came. The management company came, and they were like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, your cousin, she called and she's concerned about you. And she wanted to make sure everything was okay with you. I was like, yeah, I was just, I was just sleeping or whatever. And then the police came. So I had two entrances, one from like, my apartment that I used to live in was a loft style apartment. You had the upstairs and you had downstairs. So there was a way to get in from the inside from the upstairs, and downstairs was only entrance from the outside. So that's where the police knocked on my door from downstairs, and they were like, yeah, we're doing a wellness check. Your cousin seems to think that something's going on, and they had saw the pills that I had, taken.
Oh God.
Are the container, and they were like, yeah, so what's going on? And at that point, I couldn't lie because it was right there.
Wow.
And so they was like, yeah, you're coming with us, and you're not, this isn't going on your record, and all this other stuff like that, but you need help. And of course, that's the last thing I wanted, right? Was to get help and to go, into a hospital, but that's what I needed. And that was kind of like the start of the process. Like, I literally had to be, if I didn't have that support, like I said, I don't know. If my cousin didn't, if they weren't checking on me and things of that nature, I don't know. I was so dead set on doing what I wanted to do, but God had a plan, so.
Wow. So now you go to the hospital, and from there, that was your turning point after the hospital?
No, girl. I was at the hospital and I still wasn't well. Like, the thing about depression and mental illness is that it's not a quick fix. And it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. It's something that I'll always have to make sure I prioritize my mental health and, do the self-care and the wellness, because the mind is so fragile. And also because of my family history, that's another reason why I also make sure that I take care of my mental health, because of, my family history with it. But, girl, no, I was like, I got there, I was ready to go. Like, I did not like being in a hospital. And I don't think anyone who has gone to a hospital likes to be in a hospital. You get there and you're ready to go, you're ready to get out. But it's necessary because, you're a danger to yourself, right? They put you there because you're a danger to yourself. But it took me probably a year to fully get to the point where the depression had subsided. And that was, unfortunately, I was misdiagnosed. I was given medications that weren't really helping me at all. So it was a year of trial and error, unfortunately. But eventually, things kind of got on the right path. And then when it got on the right path and I started feeling better, I said to myself, I don't want to feel that way again. What are some of the things that I could do so I don't go back down that road that I went on? And I knew that the biggest thing was I wasn't living authentically. Like, for me, I love to talk to people. Like, and at work, when you're in accounting, it's, it's you in the computer, it's you in Excel. Like, it's you booking entries, it's you in the numbers. Your numbers are your best friend, And so I think that it took a lot for me to do what I was doing, because it wasn't true and authentic to who I was. Now I could do this type of work all day, every day. It energizes me, right? So I knew that I could no longer do a job that was draining to me, that I had to get up and literally become a whole different person in order to go to work. I'd be tired. By the time I get home, I have no energy for anything else, because all day I'm like trying to put on this front, you know what I'm saying? Like, so living an inauthentic life was draining and toxic. And I think a part of that was perception. Like, I guess maybe I perceived that I couldn't come to work as myself. So therefore I came to work as this person. And, maybe there could have been some things about that could be changed. But I had been so traumatized by the situation. I was like, we'll go back there. Like, literally, I would go into this, like, I don't even know what to call it, like a stupor. Like, when my cousin would ask me about my job, I would literally, like, my brain would, like, disconnect. I don't know what it's called. There's probably a term for it. But she'd be like, so do you think you'll be able to go back to work? And my brain be like literally, I would disconnect. It was the weirdest thing. So because there was so much trauma from being in that world, I said, I can't go back. So then I started on a path of, okay, well, let me do some research to figure out like mental health organizations in Boston for like women of color, and I was like having a hard time finding anything because I didn't know. I had just moved back to Boston, trying to get reacclimated after being away for almost like 7 years. I wasn't finding anything, so I said, the heck with it. I'm gonna start something, and I'm gonna call it PureSpark. I got help with the name, and I'm gonna talk about my story to whoever wants to listen, and I'm gonna be as honest as I possibly can, so that other people can feel like they can be vulnerable too, and they can share their story without judgment. Like, yeah, I was suicidal. I hated myself. I was the lowest of low. But that was the depression, right? Now I'm not that way. But I had to heal, and if you break your ankle, right? Like, no one's gonna say, get up and run. No, you gotta heal that thing. And the amount of time that it takes to heal is gonna be different for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Take as long as you need. And I'm so thankful that I had the grace and the ability to literally take as long as I needed to take to heal. Thank God. I didn't have to rush back to anything.
That's so awesome. I want to know why PureSpark. Why call it PureSpark? What is it about that name that did it for you?
Always ask me that question. I know it's such a unique name.
Why wouldn't we? It's a unique name.
What the heck is PureSpark?
I want to know.
So yeah, the name. Very interesting. So I had a list of names. And I probably still have it in my phone. And I went to go speak to someone about like doing a logo. And she was like, well, do you have a name? And I was like, well, I got a couple of names. What you think about these? She was like, well, I like the pure, but then I don't know. Let's Google some things. Let's Google some. She was like, what about PureSpark? And I was like, yes. That sounds amazing. I love it. And so the way that we talked about it was like, pure, being true to who you are, right? Because we're born pure, we're born true.
We are.
I mean, you look at children, they're so real.
Yes.
They keep it real. They keep it
yes.
true. And Spark, it's funny, like the person who helped me, she was like, you're so bubbly, you're just a spark of joy. And the whole idea is trying to help people find their spark, get back to your pure spark, what makes you shine, right? And the whole idea and thought is that there's so many different ways to get to your pure spark, and that could be through therapy, right? It could be through I don't know, dance. It could be through yoga. It could be through meditation. It could be through a little bit of each. But I want to share resources to help people find their pure spark, because there's tons of great resources out there, like tons. Now that I got into this world, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much out here.
So many
much
things
out here. And it's just introducing people to that and giving them, options. Yeah, because I think the whole mental health, even the word like mental illness, people are like, ugh, like I'm not mentally ill. I'm too strong for that. You know what I mean? It just has such a stigma to it. And I don't know if it'll ever lose its stigma during my lifetime. But I no longer walk around with the shame of saying, how I feel. You know what I'm saying? I don't put any judgment on it.
That's so good.
Authentic. Like yesterday I saw a post about this woman in New York who was served as a doctor in the ER who had committed suicide, and I literally grieved her death. Like I literally went through the grieving process of her death. Like as I was reading the article, I'm like anger, sadness, but I can process my emotions so much better now because of what I've gone through and what I've learned. And I hope that other people can do the same.
Yeah, no, that's good. And the article, yeah, I know, I read it last night, and gosh, I feel like I'm crying all over again because that was sad. That was really sad, and
it was sad.
I think what you're doing is amazing, and for anybody that's like listening to this right now, is there any takeaways you can give them about how they can work on finding their PureSpark? Because I know like your story just like touched so many different people in different ways. So many different ways, right? Like there's a piece, I can grab pieces of your story and it's like, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? So what are some takeaways that you can give to my audience who may be listening?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to know yourself, right? Because it's important to know who you are at like status quo. Like, what's your baseline? Who is Celeste when Celeste is like at peace? Like, what's your homeostasis, as they would say, right? Because if you know yourself, then you can know when you're off, right?
Yeah.
And then you can know, all right, well, I'm a little bit off today, but I'm way off, and I've been way off for like 2 weeks. Maybe I need to call somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to talk to a therapist. Maybe I need to see a psychotherapist. Maybe I need to see a psychiatrist. Maybe I need to check into a mental health hospital. You know what I mean? When you know yourself, you can do that easily, right? But when you don't know yourself and you're not connected to yourself, you're kind of just like out in space, kind of just going with the flow, not really knowing, and you're really suffering, and it could be dangerous. So the first thing that I would want people to take away with is finding ways to get connected to themselves, and then know what your warning signs are, because what your warning signs are might not be the same warning signs for me. And then, think about if you're somebody who has gone through, mental disturbances in the past. I hope that you have a plan in place for when these things arise, who to talk to, who's going to pay your bills for you when you're in the hospital, that stuff. It would be great to kind of have that stuff planned out. Or if you're somebody who is currently concerned about your mental health, I would definitely make sure that you connect with a therapist, a peer support group, and think about people who you can trust with certain parts of your life. Because when I was severely depressed, I couldn't do anything. Like I literally couldn't think. Some of the symptoms are you're thought process. Like it literally affects your brain where you can't think. I would go from one room to another room, and be like, I don't even know how I got here.
Yeah, Cheryl said autopilot. You're basically
you're
on
on
autopilot.
So I think it's really important to get back to that village mentality. That in our culture, I think we've strayed away from that village mentality, but we need to get back. I think it's important for us to get back to that village mentality and have a support group, because like I said, my support group was a lifesaver. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't be here. So getting a support group and getting connected to yourself, I think are the two.
No. Those are two perfect things that you're saying. And when I think about now with everyone being in quarantine, I think once the order went into place and the stuff became like real, my concern was there are already people that were at their like breaking point with their mental health, right? So now we have this added layer of things taking place, and I feel like we're all suffering together. But then separate. So like we feel isolated. And one of the things I've been trying to like be mindful of is language. And like, when I hear like social distance, I feel like, well, I can't be around or I can't deal with anyone, but it's really physical distancing that we're practicing right now. So there is support. There are people that are doing things. What is PureSpark doing during this COVID? And like, how are you trying to like stay connected with people? Because the whole idea behind PureSpark is amazing and needed. And the whole idea of you mentioning community, I think, is important, because when you're depressed, your mind will tell you all these crazy things that ain't true. And it's too easy to believe it because you have nobody challenging it. Mm-hmm. When you're in community, right, you got your aunt, your cousin, you got people challenging it. And so like you can't stay in that space, like you're forced out of it. So like what is it that PureSpark is doing?
Yeah, and I want to touch on that too, Celeste.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that, community is important, but quality community.
Yes.
Right? So community where you can feel like you can be vulnerable. Somebody that you can feel like, you can share things with. And, to be honest, like there's certain people that you have different connections with, right? So not everyone you can go to with your problems, right? That might be the party person over there. Like if you want to turn up, you call her or you call him. But if you want to vent and have a venting session, you call that person. Like
I'm a mixture of both.
Yeah. And I try to be too, because you know what I'm saying? I like to turn up. But also, let's talk about what's going on in the world right now. Like, multifaceted.
But that person might be separate too. Like, so you may not have somebody that can party and talk. So, you're right about that. Thank you for putting that out there.
Yes. So, I'm big on community, but I'm even bigger on quality community. Because that's important. So, so what PureSpark is doing. So every Wednesday night, PureSpark meets from 7 to 8:30. And we have a peer support group, Wellness Wednesdays, peer support. And it's in the middle of the week because, you might be struggling to get through. And it's at night because, we have working moms and dads and, give them a chance to put the children to sleep or, log off from work and then they can come on here. But what we do is we kind of explore different types of healing. So we've had Manifest Peace on, we had True Peace on, Portia Lee is coming on tomorrow. And we're just getting some education and techniques and skills that people can readily use that's right there and available to them. Breathing, mindfulness, just different mindfulness techniques. And a lot of people will say, like, you know, I'll do a check-in before, right? I'll check in with people and be like, hey, you know, how's everything doing? How are you guys feeling? No judgment. Just talk about how you're feeling right now. People will say, okay, I'm feeling this way. Then we go into the technique, whatever the technique may be, for like 30 minutes. And then after the technique, people are like, wow, man, I feel so relaxed. And, you know, I'm like, yes, so this is available to you. These techniques are all things that you're using from within. Um, it's just being able to foster it and pull it out when you need to use it. And it's like a muscle, like resiliency, and it's literally like a muscle. If you don't work on it every day, you know, it's not going to be as healthy as if you were to work on it every day. So, you know, I think that I credit what I've been through in the past to be able to get me through this like COVID situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I know that with what you're doing, with what other people are doing, you know, getting the word out is going to help people. I always start my live broadcast with kind of telling people to reach out for support because I know this is a really hard time. I hear the stories, you know, and I'm a very solution focused type of therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And lately it's like I'm listening, right? And because it's the solutions or the things that they're struggling with, there's no answer right now, right? And so the tools that like your Wednesday night groups are providing, that inner stuff, there is a solution to work on our inner stuff, right? And I know people like in my community, I didn't grow up talking about nobody's meditation or like looking within. That was never a part of my vocabulary. So and I say that because the fact that I can like talk so boldly about it and really like passionately about it says a lot about like how it has helped me tremendously. And I really want people to kind of like lean into that and understand that like, yes, there's a lot we don't know, but let's look at what we do know and what we do have going on for ourselves. I think that's so important.
And Celeste, to be honest with you though, like, do we even know anything? Do we really even know what tomorrow's gonna bring? Like we
don't.
We aren't fortune tellers. And I think, you know, part of it is releasing that need to be in control of the future, right?
Yes.
And submitting to just being in the present, you know, because we don't have any control. We really don't. And anything that you thought you had a control over, that's perceived, right? Yeah. That's perceived. Yeah. It's not real. So
we only have the moments, and like I really want people to work on being in the moment. Is there anything, tell people how they can find you? Nieisha, thank you for making space to be here authentically. I'm telling y'all, when she asked me to put this on there, I said, oh, okay, she's about to go in, and you went in and I love it and I appreciate it so much. Tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, so they can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I have 2 pages. One is Nieisha Speaks. So that is my platform where you will begin to start hearing little snippets of my speeches and my story. So that's Nieisha Speaks, NIEISHASPEAKS. And then I have my mental health resource / advocacy organization called Your PureSpark. Once again, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So that's YOURPURESPARKS.
Thank you. And if you're listening to
no S at the end. I don't know why I just added that S.
Oh, yeah, no S. Okay.
No S. It's right there. You can see it.
If you're watching this, you can see it at the bottom. But if you're listening to the audio, just go to the show notes and click on it. I'll have a link for you to click on the link so that you can go directly to her page and tell her how dope she is. Nieisha, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being in the space.
Yay. All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
That was so awesome. I'm clapping like 'cause she's so amazing. So if you are just coming in, Nieisha just kind of shared her story. You can watch the replay or you can listen to it on the podcast. And yeah, it was so good, right? Like, she almost had me crying. I was like, hold on, Celeste. I've been trying to hold the story she brought up last night. Oh God, it breaks my heart. And actually the other night I had a dream that and I haven't had like a vivid dream in a while that kind of woke me up. And I had a dream, and I think because I probably seen something before I went to bed, that there was these people that needed me and I wasn't there for them. And then I was trying to get to them and I couldn't get to them. And then like I see this lady, a doctor who is doing great things in the ED, feel like she's not doing enough. And it just like, I think it just like, it was like a clash of that, that like freaked me out. So I'm just grateful for people like Nieisha that agree to come on during this time, you know, and share about what they're doing and continue to do the things that they do to kind of help people and let people know that they're not alone, because I know that it's so desperately needed during this time of quarantine, and in general, it's needed. And so one thing that Nieisha said at the end was like, do we really know tomorrow whether or not we were in quarantine or COVID was here or not? Like, we wouldn't know tomorrow. And I think even before all this was happening, we had already struggled with kind of being in the moment. So really kind of working on that now, because it's like what we have is going to be huge. So we'll be back tomorrow with another, actually, no, tomorrow it's going to be me. Tomorrow I'm going to come on. We're going to talk about mental health, and I'm going to talk about some tools, some questions that people had. I'm going to kind of answer those tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. I'm going to answer those tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll just be me and you guys. And then Thursday we have another guest, and then Friday. Yeah, so the next 2 days we're going to have another guest, but tomorrow it'll be me and you guys. We're going to be talking about mental health. I'm going to be helping you shift the way that you think. If there's a question that you have and you want to share it privately, you can email me or DM me, and I'll make sure it gets answered on the platform. Don't forget, we also have this wellness assessment course. Nieisha actually brought up this financial piece. So for anybody that was listening, and she talked about the financial piece that she was going on with, but didn't think about the other things. There's so many more pieces to us having like a balanced life that a lot of us don't really realize. And so there's this free assessment course. If you go to celestetherapist.com, you can learn about the assessment course and learn about how you can work on making those changes in your life. So thank you guys so much for always rocking out with me. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the therapist. Let's go.